Hey folks, welcome back to Max Nafe Horsemanship. Well, I've done over 800 videos in total, and there's only so much about horsemanship you can talk about. And so I'm going to start redoing a few of my videos, and I'm rearranging them a little bit too, because the next one you're going to watch here right away, in just a minute, I'm going to talk to you for just a second, but it's going to follow up to the last video on good horsemanship. And in fact, the two are so connected, I even quoted the exact same passage from the same book in this one that I did in the last one. Don't mind that. You need to hear that part. It's important. But you're going to hear it again. And, well, it's going to be another pretty short one, too, so I'm not going to take up too much of your time. But it's all about good horsemanship, being a good horseman, and how to go about it. And it just follows right along from the last couple videos. So I think it's a good connection there, and I hope you take the time to watch it. Sit back and relax and enjoy it. Won't take much of your day. Probably takes more of my day to make it. See you in a minute. It's a subject that I've been wanting to talk about for quite a while, and it's inspired largely by a book I've been reading. Now, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the book before I get into the topic. It was written by an author that I believe they've written about 7 books. They've done clinics, and from what I can tell, they're fairly knowledgeable about horses. And I'm not going to mention the name of the book or the author because I don't necessarily agree with everything that they say, although the advice they give is largely okay. When people have riding problems, they advise them to do this, that, and the other thing from the saddle, and I don't agree with that. It's just kind of a principled thing. I think it's much easier and definitely much safer to fix problems on the ground. I've talked about that before. However, this book that I've been reading, it was written, well, they actually already had it written on their website, because they had a website that was kind of a question and answer format. Somebody would send in a question and they would write an answer. And they'd usually give an explanation that would take, a couple to several paragraphs. But this one, the initial answer, although they did go on to explain themselves a little, the initial answer was one word. The question was, when is it okay to discipline my horse? And their short answer was never. It is never okay to discipline your horse. Now, they went on to explain why, but I'm not going to paraphrase what somebody else said. I'm going to tell you what I think, because there are several problems with disciplining a horse. First off, the basic concept of discipline means that you are angry or unhappy with that horse for something it has done. Now, there's a couple different trains of thought on how horses sense your emotion, but not too many people out there will disagree with the fact that a horse can sense your emotions. Some people, however, think that a horse needs to learn that. I'm not convinced that's true, because even horses that have had virtually no training and almost unhandled, when I approach them with a very gentle, calm demeanor, seems to be much more effective. Maybe that's just because I'm in the right mindset where I'm more effective. I don't know, but considering how fast horses can learn things, sensing your emotion is something that they could learn very, very quickly anyhow. So disciplining your horse would put you in a mindset where you have negative emotions, you're angry, you're disappointed, you're frustrated, whatever, and they're going to sense that, and that's going to create problems. I'm not going to elaborate any more on that, because the problems that it could create could be many, and it would take way too long to talk about them. Secondly, if you're disciplining your horse, that means that you are using fear to train your horse, because they fear the discipline, so they do the right thing. And even going back as far as, I think it's somewhere around 450 years ago, somebody wrote a book. And so this is nothing new. This is not a new theory at all. But it was written in the book. I believe the wording was, I'm not going to read quote the whole thing, but if you train a horse with fear, sooner or later it's going to find something it's more afraid of than you. So if you run into a problem with your horse, it's kind of like riding a time bomb, because eventually it's going to end up in a situation that it's going to be scared enough about something and worried enough about something that it doesn't care about you. It doesn't care if you're going to be angry, because it's already more scared about the situation than you. And that's not a good way to ever train a horse. A horse should never ever be trained with fear. And that's just an absolute horrible thing to be doing. So that's that's the second reason. And the third reason, and this is largely my personal reason, is it eliminates the try, which is something you really, really want in a horse when you're training it. Because if the horse isn't willing to try because they're scared of discipline, because if they don't get it right, you're going to get mad. If they don't do the right thing, you're going to discipline them, right? Well, that's kind of how that works in most cases. I don't like doing it that way, because eventually what happens is the horse becomes so scared of doing the wrong thing and getting disciplined, it simply stops trying at all. And I did a video a few years back saying, he's not being bad, he's trying. And that's what happens when you're working with a horse. If you ask a horse to do something and it doesn't exactly do what you want, it's not being bad. And there's absolutely no reason to be getting angry with it, because he's trying. He's getting it wrong, but he's trying at least. And that's what you want. You want that try, so that the horse will try this, that, the other thing, and eventually they'll get it right. And then you'll release pressure, you'll stop cueing, and they will sense your pleasure in that you are pleased with them, you're happy. And, they'll always be willing to try again. They may not always get it right, but they'll always try. And that is the number one reason I think you should never ever discipline your horse, because if you discipline it often enough, eventually it's going to quit trying. And then you're going to run into all kinds of problems when it comes to training, because the horse isn't going to do anything for you. So I think that's personally the number one reason, in my opinion. But there's three reasons right there. Is one, you're going to have negative emotions because you're going to be angry or disappointed or whatever. Secondly, the horse is always going to find something eventually that it's more scared of than you and your discipline. And thirdly, and most importantly, in my opinion, is you eliminate the try. And that's something you never, ever, ever want to do, because that totally destroys any chance of training your horse, because if it's not willing to try, you're never going to get anywhere. So, when is discipline acceptable? Never. There you go. Told you, it wouldn't take long. But it was important stuff. Discipline, not acceptable. It's the same as the connection between the fear and respect thing. Like I said, all this stuff's all connected. It all works together, and you need to hear it from all the different angles, sort of thing. So I'm trying to put as many together here as possible. And, well, eventually we're going to go off onto something else. I don't know what'll come up after this, but I don't know, maybe I'm going to find another. Oh, I know, I'd be a good follow-up to this one, too. Got a plan here. So you're going to want to check back in a little while and see what else I got cooking, because I got another one that I think is really worth talking about. Now, if you excuse me, I got some horses to go play with that are standing over there on the other side of the fence looking at me, saying, hey, come on, come play with me. So I'll oblige them. I'm going to give them some of my time because I enjoy it. In the meantime, take care, have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye now.